Hey, happy October to everyone. It's the first, and it is the time for our first Wednesday with Walton and Reis of the new month, the final quarter of the year. Where did this year go, Kyle? Obviously, my partner here, Kyle Reis.
Hello, Brian. I have no idea. No idea.
Well, we've been together 9 months now, and I think it's going really well here, and we're going to keep going until one of us burns out.
Yeah, it probably won't be me, and hopefully it won't be you. We'll see how it goes.
There you go. And I should remind you, of course, you know this already, but we need to say it. And that is that we come to you each week in video form at thecardinalnation.com. So if the podcast isn't available on the normal podcast apps right away, make sure you come to the website. You can see it. It's free. So no issue there. You have to look at us, or maybe you could just, go do some other things and have us in the background. But anyway, so we're here. We're going to cover, we can't not cover the press conferences that were held on Monday and Tuesday, respectively, with the outgoing president of baseball ops, John Mozeliak, and the incoming president of baseball ops, Chaim Bloom. Bloom also had with him the DeWitts, and so there were some questions to them as well. And so let's get started with that, Kyle. What's some of your big takeaways from the session? Before I let you think about that for a second, one of the things that struck me was when Mr. DeWitt was asked about the payroll for next year and whether it's going to be up, down, or sideways. And he said, Chaim and I haven't even talked about that, which I thought was a little bit surprising. Obviously, we're not in the trade season yet, but at some point in time, somebody has to tell Chaim how much money he has to work with, and I would think it would be the bosses. Maybe they haven't run all their financial ledgers and all, but they should have an idea of what they want to spend this winter, I would think.
Yeah, I wondered, Brian, did they just come into the this press conference not knowing that information so that they didn't have to answer the question? You know, because
Maybe, but I think we all know. I mean, the answer is either going to be flat or down, quite probably. And I don't understand why dodging it would benefit anybody.
yeah, Brian, my whole takeaway from that press conference on Tuesday with Chaim Bloom is that it does not feel any different to me, other than the words being used than what we've heard in the past. It just did not sound any different. It didn't feel any different, and maybe that's because the organization, under the direction of the DeWitts, has worked to keep this sales pitch working. I don't really know how else to put it. I'm probably choosing the wrong words, but ever since we've heard it now for almost 2 years, ever since they brought Chaim on, it's about draft and develop. It's about mining the international market. And we've heard Mo say a lot of the same things over the last couple of weeks in particular as he's done his Bon Voyage journey, his Au revoir tour. So it didn't seem like anything new. And there wasn't like a whole lot of extra energy or a repackaging of the information in any way that seemed revitalizing or even from a different perspective. It felt all like the conversations that we like it felt all like what we've been discussing since last year's press conference, which also, by the way, they did not have any real idea of what their finances were going to be then, and they were not really forthcoming about that. They did say, to their defense, that they cut payroll and that Gibson wasn't coming back and Lynn wasn't coming back last year. Um, and that they said that, but even from an unprepared standpoint, they had that press conference last year and it was, well, we're going to talk to Wilson, we're going to talk to Sonny, we're going to talk to Nolan, and
Now
they
this
hadn't.
year, this year at least they've talked to him already, so they kind of know where they stand, right?
Yeah, it would appear so that they know where they stand, and we'll see where that goes too, because there's still questions with that. But it just seems like, how about, and I understand the timing of it with Mo transitioning out of his role, Chaim taking it, but like, how about you wait to find some answers before you start having these after season press conferences? Just, and I know it's easy because everybody's there before they go on, but it's just, man, it did not feel any different. It felt recycled, even with the new face, and also rushed again.
I did. Bloom did say one thing, which again we knew already, but and this is a quote: "Our top priority will be to build our talent base for the long term. That may mean hard decisions and short-term sacrifices. But to get where we want to go, we can't take shortcuts, and we won't." So, I mean, that's telling me payroll may be down, and they may make some trades where they're trading, solid major leaguers for prospects or for for guys that are longer, maybe higher risk, but longer controllable, longer controllable period. And I'm not against that. My personal view is they've been so risk averse for so long. It's time to get wheeling and dealing and see what they can do. And I just hope that Bloom won't be as conservative as Mozeliak's been. It's just almost like Mozeliak was hesitant to make moves because he was worried about him blowing up. And I get that Rosarena and Adolis Garcia and on and on and on, but
Yeah.
you can't play scared.
Yeah, Brian, I am right there with you. I hope that is something that changes under Mr. Bloom. I hope that ends up being a refreshing change. And then you said that you just deal with, oh, it didn't work out, and then you move on to the next trade, and you hope that your process again, you trust your process, and maybe that's really, as you say that, as I take my cue from you. The overarching thing, maybe the one thing that was different is Chaim seems very into the process, his process, the Cardinals' process, the way that it's going to go. And that, even when he was saying the same things that we've heard Mo say for the last couple of years and Mr. DeWitt say for a couple of years, even when he was saying those things, recycling those things and just using different words to do it, it was all about the process, trust the process. I think one of the things that stuck with me with what Chaim said was, he said something like, you have to be willing to take risks, even if they don't sound weird, or even if they're weird or kind of off the beaten path.
If you have conviction in what you're doing. And
yeah.
The question, and unfortunately I couldn't be there, but when I see Chaim Bloom, one of the first questions I'm going to ask him is, have you changed how the Cardinals do player evaluation? Because we know that the base models that the Cardinals have been running on were developed by Michael Gersh and his team. And Michael Gersh is obviously on the outs. I would guess he'll be leaving the organization with Mozeliak. And Bloom, of course, has a lot of experience in that area as well. If the Cardinals look at players the same way, they're going to make the same kinds of decisions. And obviously that hasn't been working. So I'm really anxious to see, and they're not going to tell us the details of what's going on behind the covers, but just a fresh way, a different way of looking at the players they have and the players that are out there in the market would be a step forward, I think.
Yeah, Brian, that's a great point. That's a great point. It's hard to make this next comment without sounding like I'm being critical of the journalists. The questions were kind of rough. And let me say this real quick. Chaim Bloom got up there, and after Bill DeWitt Jr. gave him a 2-minute introduction, Chaim Bloom talked for 9.5 minutes and didn't really say anything. He thanked people, he's already done this press conference. He just kind of recycled the press conference that he had when they first introduced him. So then you have 9 minutes. So that's 11 minutes that you've been sitting there as a reporter. You have all of these questions. And then once you get going, Derek Gould asked a great question about how will the pending lockout, the potential for work stoppage, along with dwindling attendance, and all of this. He phrased this very well phrased question about the finances of the DeWitts and the Cardinals as they enter the 2026, dovetailing into the potential work stoppage. And Bill DeWitt Jr. or Bill DeWitt III rather goes on a 4.5-minute long rant where he brags about talking intimately with the chief of police and flaunts the Department of Homeland Security certification that Busch Stadium has. All while you can tell being pretty upset. Once again, Brian's doing the head for the people on the podcast. Sometimes when I'm exhausted, I just rub my eyes in my head. Brian's doing that right now. He gives a 4.5. So it's just 4.5-minute rant that does not answer the question at all, right in the middle. And then the media relations says, all right, 2 more questions. And there was no time to ask these questions. And that's another problem I have with the presser.
So here's my take on this. Bill DeWitt III gets into trouble sometimes when either he acts like he's his dad's surrogate or he is his dad's. He thinks he's his dad's surrogate, and he's not. The way the Cardinals are organized, they have 2 presidents, and Chaim Bloom runs baseball operations, and Bill DeWitt III runs business operations. And he got a question, and he should have. Now he did say very briefly at the front that the players and the team, improving that is what matters most. But then he went into a long, and he basically hijacked the press conference to talk about all the stuff that aren't as important to fans. Yes, fans want to be safe downtown. Yes, they want to pay less for concessions. Yes, they want to have more fun at the ballpark. But I can say that in about 30 seconds. And this was about Chaim Bloom and the new guy in charge, and it just completely, took the train off the tracks, in my opinion. And the reality is, the things that Bill DeWitt III talked about are very near and dear to his heart. That's his job. But it wasn't the time or place, in my opinion.
Yeah, or it wasn't even the answer to the question. And even I don't know exactly, Brian. I'm with you. I just, man, it had a certain lost a certain flow. Right as the questions were getting good and building up, you were starting to get some good answers. And between again, I'm trying my hardest to pull my reins back about my criticism on the DeWitts because it's definitely unfair, and that's like the fan in me is at my worst because I find myself being extra critical of what they're saying and how they present themselves, how they present the organization, how honestly how they've been stewarding the organization for the last couple of years. I'm making an intentional point to not do that, but between the two things that stick out to me in this is Mr. DeWitt, the junior, Bill DeWitt the second, saying that they haven't talked about payroll, and Bill DeWitt the third going on the 4.5 minute rant about nothing. Like I was just frustrated by it once again, Brian.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll have to see what happens. There are a lot of questions still asked. And there's different pieces of information that sort of trickle out afterward. Not a surprise to you or I, but to a bunch of other people who are holding out the irrational hope that the Cardinals are going to replace the manager. Oliver Marmol will be back next year. Surprise. The Cardinals aren't in a position where they're ready to contend. They're not going to get a big name guy to come in yet, and they're not going to pay two managers next year. So, let's just forget about talking about the manager until either the Cardinals get off to a dreadful start and they have to make a change in season, or the end of the year, or if he's going to be a lame duck throughout.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't have a feeling one way or the other about Ali, especially entering the year that we're about ready to enter with the talent being what the talent's probably going to be. I will say it's worth mentioning that there's a little rumor going around tonight by some of the Dominican or, the Hispanic reporters that Albert Pujols might be the next manager of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. And that would be interesting. So you'd probably get people pretty fired up. And maybe by the time that you're listening to this recording, that will be actual news and not just some what appears to be Twitter speculation more than anything.
Yeah, well, good. I wish him nothing but the best if that's what he does. I hope the Cardinals, when they do make a change, go for some experience finally.
Yeah, yeah, me too, Brian. Boy, how nice would that be?
So, another thing that's been talked about a little bit recently, and Kyle Leahy made a very fine 3 inning start to close the season, the last game of the year. Offense didn't show up again, but that's the way it's been. What's your take on Kyle in the rotation? Is he a guy that should be counted on, or should they just leave him alone and let him be successful as a reliever? I went back and looked at his numbers, and the last time that he had an ERA under five as a starter was in 2019 in High A. Now, I know he's got a new pitch and he's more effective, but the guy's been pretty good out of the bullpen. Do you think he can hold a spot in the starting rotation, Kyle Leahy?
I think he can in what we're looking at as the 2026 Cardinals starting rotation. I think that maybe a couple years back, probably not. That 3 inning start to end the season, again, he did everything you could ever want him to do. You hope that extrapolates in 2026 if given the opportunity.
Got a guy on base, got a double play, got right out of it. Yeah, no, it was very impressive. But that
But
wasn't the second time through the order either, or the
so
third time.
that's between that, Brian, and when he was at the minor leagues, even before he got the sweeper, which leveled up his stuff. The reason he would get rocked in the minors, the high minors, is he would throw fastballs down the middle. And he honestly, like his command was never so good that he could paint how you want to paint as the starting pitcher. It's part of why he's been able to get away as a relief pitcher and do some things really well. And granted, he also had that lull, and granted, he was overused or used quite frequently, maybe not even overused, but he had that lull in the season where he was really bad. He wasn't even like a passable reliever. All of this is just to say that the big thing for him has never been stuff exactly. It's been about how he commands stuff. And in that last start, the start to end the year, that first start, last start, whatever you want to call it, he was getting away with fastballs down the middle at 92, 94 miles an hour. That's not going to happen over a full season. He was getting away with sliders down the sweepers down the middle. Like that's not going to happen. You're not going to get away with that. So I think that you're probably looking at something similar to what that group of Andre Palante and Matthew Liberatore and Michael McGreevy already give the Cardinals. I don't think it'll be anything more. I don't think it'll be anything less exactly, whatever you want to say, because
Hey,
Andre Palante.
if he could be as good as McGreevy's been, I would book that right now with no questions asked.
Yeah, and hope that he can be durable the way that McGreevy has as well. So,
Yeah, but
um,
the difference McGreevy has is McGreevy had 66 starts at AAA. I think Palani might have had five or something like. He got rushed, like sort of like Jordan Hicks did before him. Now, Leahy obviously has been at AAA a lot. He's been in the major leagues a lot, but that's been all as a reliever. It's a very different thing to start. So I guess we'll see in the spring. I'm hoping the Cardinals don't put all their eggs in that one basket. They've got to get some more arms, especially if Sonny Gray goes.
yeah, absolutely. Sonny Gray is the linchpin. Hard to fill innings without Sonny Gray.
Yeah, I just don't. I think they lose total credibility as a team if they don't have somebody to head the rotation. But that's just me. I don't know if they're going to go in a full blow up mode or not. I hope not.
It didn't sound like that during the press conference. It did not sound like that was going to be full. It honestly, like, I guess to double back to that real quick, and I'm sorry, I'm trying my hardest to move on. It sounded like they're still going to try to be opportunistic. They're still going to try to, like, there is a situation, a scenario in which
Don't
they could,
use the up. Time out. Sorry to interrupt. Opportunistic is a mo word.
yeah,
3 minutes in the 3 minutes in the penalty box.
that's right. I'm gonna have to start learning Chaim's words. Yeah,
Yep.
oh man, he had a really good one today, and I meant to make a note of it. But yeah, it did sound like there is a chance that they'll be looking to maybe make the team better if it's a move that makes sense for both the short term and the long term. Because again, the long term. So I don't know. Maybe they're going to go after Paul Skeens, Brian, and give him a record.
There you go. There you go. There's one way to become the Pirates. All
Yeah.
right, moving on. Um, Springfield Cardinals took the Texas League Championship, and they did it in against some serious odds. I mean, the Cardinals won 88 games, best in the history of the franchise by a mile. They won first and second half standings. They had their fourth straight MVP, second straight pitcher of the year, second straight manager of the year. A lot of things are going right, but Springfield goes to the championship series and they drop game one at home. Their only game at home. And Pete Hansen did great. The bullpen imploded. But then they came back on the road and took the final two games in a very impressive manner. And Bryson Motts was tremendous in the playoffs. 1 run in 11 innings. Hansen pitched well. Of course, Texas League Pitcher of the Year. Ishan Henderson did well. He had one bad inning where he gave up 3 runs. But other than that, I mean, the Springfield Cardinals had a tremendous season.
Yeah, probably the best, Brian, in my memory, probably the best season that an affiliate has ever had, just from a dominant standpoint. I mean,
28 games over 500, won both halves. And, and folks know the roster that they started with back at the beginning of April and the roster they ended up with were quite a bit different. There were some of the guys that were there the whole time and some of the pitchers, as we talked, the starting pitchers especially. But, there's a lot of come and go as well.
Yeah, and for them to kind of win in two different ways, the first win on the road, down 1-0 in the series to kind of come back, claw back to win that game, and then the game to win the championship where everybody had like 6 hits that game. Everybody got 12 at bats and had 6 or 8 hits, and they just absolutely, for lack of a better term, murdered Midland for that final game, and it's such a great end cap to that season. And not only, and they had injuries, they lost some players along the way, they gained some pitching, but
Tink who?
exactly. But one of these days we'll learn, Brian. One of these days we'll learn what comes after Ting or whatever. So, yeah, like they lost a lot. Everybody played a role, and bravo to that entire part of the organization.
Agreed. Some other recognition that happened now that the AAA season is over. Minor League Baseball announced their awards. And again, we have to remember the Cardinals play in the International League, where the Texas League, where Springfield is, 10 teams. The International League, where Memphis is, 20 teams. So to make their All-Star team, only 16 players for guys from 20 teams, and the Cardinals had 2 representatives. Andre Granillo, of course, the reliever who's been up and down with St. Louis, and Jose Fermin, who hasn't done much with St. Louis, but had a very, very nice season with Memphis, the second year in a row. Both those guys were all-stars.
Yeah, good for both of them. Hopefully Andre Granillo can work on some of his command issues and liven up that fastball and play a really important role for the Cardinals bullpen in 2026. He flashed some important, that slider's a good pitch for him. He did some good things at the major league level. He's got to continue to get better. Maybe that little taste will get him fired up. And we saw Jose Fermin, who I am quick to write off sometimes, actually do some pretty good things for the Cardinals in those last couple of weeks when his role expanded a little bit. It kind of carried over some of the things that we saw him have success at AAA. So again, Brian, you phrased it perfectly. Well done. Gave the context beautifully. Here's the hoping, because I mean, more than likely, Jose Fermin being as young as he is, as controllable as he is, still, I would imagine that both of them will make it through the winter on the 40 man unless they're traded.
Yep. Yep. The other award that was announced at the same time was, not surprisingly, J.J. Wetherholt was named the top major league prospect in the International League. And he only spent his final 47 games with Memphis. As everybody probably remembers, Wetherholt spent the majority of his year at Springfield, where he was the Texas League's most valuable player. But he moved up to Memphis and slashed 314, 416, 562, 978. So did well with power and production and stole 9 bases in 10 tries. So Wetherholt didn't miss a beat, and I suspect he may not spend too much time in Memphis in 2026. What do you think about that?
Yeah, there's all the incentive imaginable to actually allow him to start the season with the Cardinals if he earns it in spring, and they're happy with the chance of getting a draft pick compensation if he finishes in the top 3 of a Rookie of the Year voting. So it's not going to take him long. He's just, Brian, to reiterate a point we've talked. He just doesn't do anything wrong. Like he's just so polished.
A lot
He's
like
so
you and I,
smart.
Kyle.
Oh, Brian, that's a great. Thank you for the comparison, Brian. I mean, he's as polished as we are. He's as perfect as we are, and yeah, he just to be as well polished as he is. It's just so impressive. He does it on D, does it on the bases, and does it at the plate. So I'm excited for him, Brian.
Weatherholt came up again on Monday when minor league baseball announced their all prospect teams. So think of this sort of like the top prospects across all minor league baseball, no matter the level. And there was a first team and a second team, 12 players on each team. So 24 teams, 24 players, excuse me, were represented on these two all prospect teams across minor league baseball. 30 organizations, 24 players. The Cardinals had 3 players on that list. And this is why the Cardinals system is improving in its comparisons. And I'm not knowledgeable enough about the other 29 organizations to slate the Cardinals against others. I look for Baseball America and the other national entities to do that for us. And the Cardinals have been moving up in those rankings because they have a handful of very, very good prospects. Wetherholt, not surprisingly, was on the first team, all prospect team. And 2 guys that we've talked a lot about, young guys, 20 years old and 18-year-old respectively, Deniel Ortiz and Rainiel Rodriguez, were on the second team. And so not only are very young guys being represented, but the Cardinals as an organization fared very, very well in terms of the view of the people at MLB in terms of the top prospects in the game.
Yeah, Brian, I think back to a conversation that we had a long time ago where I said, I think Cade McGee and Josh Cross are 2 of the more important prospects for the organization from a depth standpoint. Because if one of those guys can take a jump, then it means that the Cardinals are getting stronger as an organization. Well, Josh Cross did pretty well. And it wasn't Cade McGee, it was Deniel Ortiz who took the jump that I thought maybe Cade McGee might be able to. But to go from being, a back 50, a back of the top 50 prospect, out of the top 50 prospect, to being a top 15 at least prospect in the organization, to getting, like you said, second team all MILB honors through MLB.com. I think that that's kind of a microcosm of some of the jump that's happened within the organization. So,
Deniel Ortiz, 300 batting average, 416 on base, both in the top 5 in the system. Just across the board, a very, very good season for a young man. Tied with Wetherholt for weighted runs created plus for those who are a little more statistically oriented. And he had the third, Deniel Ortiz, in addition to all the power, he was also had the 3rd highest walk rate in the system. So we're talking about a guy with power and speed and has a distinguished eye at the plate, distinguishing.
Yeah.
And he stole 39 bases.
I was going to say, and he's got a more than a handful's worth of stolen bases. So
yeah, second in the system, second to Joshua Baez.
Yeah, love it. I just what a great step that teenager made, and again, because of guys like Baez and Wetherholt and Rainiel Rodriguez, he still manages to fly underneath the radar. So big cap tip to him in particular on that list. for having the season that he had.
And Rainiel Rodriguez, tops in isolated power by a mile, tops in slugging, had a almost 400 on base as well. Now, granted, they were probably pitching him fairly carefully down in rookie ball, but Rodriguez didn't really miss much when he moved up to Palm Beach and then to Peoria.
Yeah, I mean, he just kept hitting and kept hitting and kept hitting, and maybe it wasn't a lot of power exactly, but yeah, it was still hits. The kid stays in the zone. He's got a sweet little swing. There isn't a whole lot of moving motion to it, and that bat, by all accounts, is going to continue to play as he climbs the ladder. Bravo to
Now,
him.
in all fairness to him, Rodriguez tied Joshua Baez for the system lead in home runs with 20.
Yeah, yeah. What was the difference in at bats there, Brian? Is that something you can look up while I ramble
Yeah,
on
yeah,
a
yeah,
little
yeah.
bit?
Give me just a sec.
Absolutely. As we do it, Josh Baez had a tremendous season. It has not been given very many of these honors, but don't be surprised if you start to see Joshua Baez start to creep up on top 100 prospect list because he's becoming kind of a flashy name to throw around.
Baez had 499 plate appearances, and Rodriguez, so call it 500.
Yeah,
And
pretty close.
Rodriguez had 368, so about 2/3.
Pretty impressive.
Now
That's
again, some of it were hit on the back. He had that week in the where he was hit like
yeah.
7 home runs on the back fields. But again, we're talking about an 18-year-old. He was not old for his league.
No, so impressive. I mean, just impressive. I mean, I guess one of the things we're starting to see is that there is a little extra power in the organization. Maybe not necessarily 30 home run power or 40 home run power, or even the raw power of someone like Nolan Gorman as a prospect. Maybe not that, but there is real actionable guys who have actionable players that have the ability to hit, 20 to 20 plus home runs. So that is a positive development.
And Cross, who you mentioned,
Yeah.
got off to a huge start with Palm Beach, slowed down a little bit at Peoria, but still fourth in the system in home runs with 16, third in isolated power. So, Josh Cross was hitting the ball, with some authority. And here's the cool thing about Josh Cross. He tied for second in the system in triples. That probably
Ha!
won't, that probably won't happen again.
I love that. I didn't know that. That is a great statistic, Brian. Well done.
Mm. And so, speaking of statistics, one of the things that I'm doing right now is I'm recapping all the hitters. I'm in terms of counting stats, rate stats. The article that's just coming up as you hear this podcast is about stolen bases and success rates. And there's some interesting names there. And then I'll switch over to the pitching leaders. And then we'll get into our team recaps, which are going to be free. So you can read about what happened at the season at each of the minor league affiliates. Then we'll go into subscriber awards where we note the hitter of the year, the starting pitcher of the year, and the relief pitcher of the year. And then we'll finish up with system level awards as well. So that's going to go on throughout the month of October into November.
I cannot wait to get my hands on it, Brian.
And make sure that if you would like, we're running out. I'm down to 4 hard copies of the Cardinal Nation Prospect Guide, 20% off for the book. So if you want it, you better order it now because when they're gone, they're gone.
Do it. Do it.
There you go. There you go. Thank you, Kyle.
Hmm.
Any closing remarks for this week, Kyle? And otherwise, you'll have to hold it for another week.
Yeah, the last thing I would like to say is I don't know if I'm rooting for the Padres, but it's hard. I could never root for the Cubs. So here's to a quick exit from the playoffs for the Chicago Cubs, which almost certainly puts them on the path to another World Series title.
I know Mike Schill. I knew Mike Schill when he first joined the organization as a very young man. Was that an adult beverage, by the way, Kyle?
Who, me?
All right, all
No.
right, all right. Back to the penalty box. Back to the penalty box. I knew Mike Schill when he was a very young man, working with Mark Dijon back in Batavia. And I have a lot of respect for him as a baseball man. And so that's one of the things I'm looking forward to as I watch the Padres play, to see Mike Schill have some success in the postseason.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just excited for the postseason. Kidding aside, Brian, my question for you is, again, I love to kind of throw this at you at the end because then we can maybe go an extra 10 minutes and we don't even realize it. But what do you take away from Chaim Bloom's interview that you think we will see immediately? Do you think anything that was said today we will start to see extrapolated on as soon as possible? Is there anything that you particularly want to see them maybe back their words up?
I want to. Most of the things that I wanted to see, I didn't hear. I told you about player evaluation. Bloom hinted that there would be some more personnel changes, but they
Yes.
wouldn't be as on the scale as they were last year, where of course a new AGM was brought in and coordinators. Now we do know they will hire a hitting coordinator. I wanted to ask him, are you going to hire a GM? I think there can be I think there's a lot of personnel changes that I hope will occur, and nothing against the people who are in their jobs now. But if you want to do things differently, sometimes you're going to need different people to do those jobs. And they didn't hesitate to do that on player development side a year ago. I also am very interested, and this is probably more a question for Rob Serfolio, but is last year when the new regime came in, it was past the time of year when contracts were already signed for the new year. So the managers and the hitting coaches and the pitching coaches and the strength and conditioning coaches, and the medical staff at the minor leagues were all pretty much all set. There are going to be guys who are going to be just like um, Russ Steinhorn is not on the list of keepers. There's going to be other guys that unfortunately aren't on that list. And I'm very curious which guys are going to stay in the organization and where their replacements are going to come from. And it's just going to take us some time, to see. It's going to be over the next couple of months, I think, when some of those decisions will come.
Yeah, I'm with you. Especially the potential additions to the front office, maybe not necessarily the subtractions, because that was also hinted at too. Maybe not front office, but coaching staff, instructors at the minor league levels, things like that, which will happen closer to the end, the beginning of the minor league season, I would think.
And the implication was that there would be some increased investment as well. They didn't give us a lot of feeling for where that would be, whether that's facilities or people or what it is. The other thing I'm going to check out for my own eyes here in about 90 days, but I'm very curious what kind of shape the Jupiter complex is in and what we're going to see in the spring.
Somebody just asked me about that, and I was like, I have no idea. I haven't heard anything.
Normally I go down in August, and I didn't do it this year. I just got too caught up with life. Or I would have, done spy photos and that kind of thing. But we'll just have to see, I guess. But I think, well, I answered the question to the best of my ability for now.
You nailed it. Aggie, our dog, was cheering you on while you were giving the answer. She was barking. She's like, I think she was just reemphasizing the points that you were making, Brian.
I think you need to let her outside.
I think too. I think that's exactly what the answer to that question is.
Yeah, that sounded more like I have to pee than anything, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, that was the stop running your mouth and take me out.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching and listening to another episode of Wednesday with Walton and Reis, and we will see you on the 8th. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you, Brian.